What's going on, traders? When it comes to trading, one of the best things that I learned to do that helped me become profitable was paying attention to high impact data, news, and events like that in order to capitalize on those, opportunities as they come. So today in this weekly prep video, we're going to cover any high impact data coming up, any important speakers, and how this could potentially impact the market. So with that being said, let's get right into it. Once again, the things that we're going to cover, any important bank holidays this week. This is super important because when you have bank holidays, for example, let's say there's a US bank holiday. Typically, when US banks are closed, New York session or the US markets can be a little more volatile. Not necessarily, it doesn't mean that they won't move. It can cause a lot of volatility, and volatility isn't really what you want to be trading. I want to trade when there's a lot of volume, not volatility. There's a big difference. So we want to cover any bank holidays. Next, we want to talk about any high impact data coming out this week, right? This is also going to be very important because the data can impact currencies, gold, commodities, indices, US 30, whatever it is that you're trading. And we want to talk about any important speakers. Sometimes there's political and also central bank speakers. We have calendars of that. Then we'll talk about what these events can impact. So starting off, let's move this off the screen and we're going to come right over to the easiest part, which is holidays and important speakers. Starting off with holidays, this, as most of you know, is a big time for the holiday season. And when you take a look here, we have a pretty big range. Monday, December 30th, all the way to January 3rd. Worldwide, both New Year's Eve and New Year's Day. Now, the reason this is worldwide is because time zones. If I show you my economic calendar and the holidays here, you can see almost every day. You have Monday, we have New Year's Eve for Japan, and then you have New Year's Eve again, you have Germany, you have France, you have the United Kingdom, New Year's Eve, you have the United States, Thursday, Japan again, you have New Zealand and Australia here, and then you have Japan again for a bank holiday, right? So almost the entire week. This is Monday to Friday. All of these countries have bank holidays. So this is something that's very important to pay attention to. You could see slow markets, you could see volatile markets, choppy price action, depending on what's going on, right? So just be aware of that, starting off with number one. The second thing, important speakers. I'll bring this calendar over again because we have one important speaker coming out, and it's someone from the Federal Reserve. Now, when you have a speaker, a Federal Reserve speaker, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to impact the markets, right? The Federal Reserve, if they're going to impact anything, it's going to be the U.S. markets. Things like US 30, also called Dow Jones, NASDAQ, the US dollar, and gold, right? So if he speaks, there's a chance that can be impacted. But like I said, it doesn't mean every single time that they speak that something's going to happen. That's why it's important to be able to see a description, right? We can see here, Federal Reserve Bank of Richmond, President Thomas Barkin speaks before the Merrill League Bankers Association, right? So he's speaking before Merrill League Bankers Association, most likely talking about banking on some level. Probably not going to be about monetary policy or anything like that. So that's something that may not have an impact on the markets, but still good to know that they'll be speaking because you can see here the time, 11 a.m. Eastern time on Friday. Maybe pay attention to headlines or news feeds or something like that, just in case there is something that could potentially impact the markets, right? The things that you want to pay attention to when a Federal Reserve speaker or a central bank speaker talks is, what is their stance on monetary policy? What is their stance on monetary policy? And is it different from what the markets are currently expecting, right? So it's very important to have context. This is both for data or speakers. If you have context, then you'll understand if what they're saying is actually different for the markets. That's when we can determine to take our trades, right? And I'll do a lot of videos on like analysis on specific data as the days come when the weeks come. But for this, just pay attention. We have that speaker coming out, right? Now, if we move this, we have the holidays, we have the speakers. We can push that over to the side, and we talk about some of the high impact data. Now, I will cover other pieces of data, not just US, but the majority of things that we have coming out this week is US data. So starting off on Monday at 9:45 a.m. Eastern time, we have something called United States Chicago PMI. All of these times are in Eastern, so do your math. I know trading is worldwide, so sometimes you just got to bear with me on this, but US Chicago PMI. Now, you can see here if it impacts US dollar, gold, and US indices. US indices are things like US 30, NASDAQ, SP 500, right? So US Chicago PMI, not that important of a piece of data, still something worth paying attention to, right? The way that I like to look at this stuff, and we had a couple pieces of data coming out that's not that important. If this is coming out and I'm looking to get into a trade, I want to be very aware, right? 9:30 a.m. Eastern time is when the New York Stock Exchange opens. So if I'm trading something like NASDAQ and I'm going to be taking buys, sells, or whatever it is, I'm going to be very careful when the stock exchange opens because I might want to wait the 15 minutes for this data to come out. So just be aware of it coming out. That doesn't mean that this is going to be something that's like really that much of a big mover for the market. Now on Thursday, January 2nd, this is something probably going to be the best opportunity, hopefully, that we get this week, considering it's a week full of bank holidays, right? So labor market data has become a little more important since the Federal Reserve's last rate decision, because they specifically said they're not cutting rates next year as much as we thought because the labor market is still strong. Jobless claims data is labor market data. So this is something that we're going to want to pay attention to. I'll do a full analysis video on why I'm actually going to be looking to trade this. Just know 8:30 a.m. Eastern time, U.S. jobless claims, it's going to impact the U.S. dollar. It's going to impact gold and U.S. indices. Once again, the U.S. markets, right? It's coming out during the New York session. After that, we have to do get called global PMI. I won't put too much weight or pressure on this piece of data. Probably not going to be a big mover in the market. With that being said, it doesn't mean I don't pay attention to it, right? I'm still watching this data almost all the time because there's always a chance that you can catch a trade off of it. But I think the higher probability this week is going to be jobless claims with the labor market data. Finishing off the week on Friday, once again, we have another piece of PMI data, but this is manufacturing PMI. Now, non-manufacturing PMI, also called services PMI, is actually a much more important piece of data for the markets because the services industry makes up over 70% of the economy's GDP. So that is usually a bigger mover for the markets, once again, usually. But labor market, in my opinion, still trumps all in terms of what the markets are paying attention to. Both that and obviously inflation data too, right? So inflation data, labor markets, those are the two things we're really paying attention to. PMI, maybe we'll catch a good trade off of it, but I think it's a little less likely. These are all the things that I'm going to be paying attention to going into this week because number one, this is a very slow week with a lot of chances and possibilities of fake outs, volatility, and just choppy trading and choppy markets. So if I can get a piece of data or a speaker to say something that gives me a very obvious trade, I'm going to take it. That increases my probabilities. That increases the chances that I win all of my trades. And that's what I want to do when I'm trading. So pay attention to this stuff as it's coming out. As always, I'm trading this live with my private trading group every single day. If you're interested in trading live with us, asking questions during these live calls about this data and how we look to take these trades, I'll put the link below in this description. And I'll see you guys in the next video.